think it's going to surprise people.
You kind of sit there and go, how did they do that?
It's going to be different from any superhero movie ever made.
There's no one better in the world to direct the Suicide Squad than James Gunn.
I was excited with an opportunity to be able to do the Suicide Squad in the way it could be done from my point of view.
This one is completely unique. This is a gritty 1970s war movie combined with the brilliance of James Gunn's characters and comedy.
You need your director to set the vibe.
The Suicide Squad is just a twisted fantasy of characters.
Within each of our characters, there's a certain beauty. Within most of them. Some of them are just pretty crappy through and through.
Be like a douchey Captain America.
The guy who believes in peace at any cost, no matter how many people he needs to kill along the way.
Okay, I got it.
Don't ever settle back like you think you know where this is going, because you don't.
As soon as you have some sense about what's about to happen next, James comes in.
Everyone's exploding. Genitals, heads, arms, legs.
It's like a big, massive graphic novel brought to life.
This is by far the biggest movie I've ever made.
I don't think that you know what to expect.
Don't get too attached.
This has been truly the greatest, most exciting journey of my life making this film.
Cut. That was great.
You know the deal. Successfully complete the mission, you get 10 years off your sentence.
You're my dream, you're my nightmare. Life is a breeze, she don't fight fair.
Welcome, Task Force X. These are your brothers and sisters for the next few days.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my video for the Suicide Squad trailer that they dropped at DC Fandome this weekend. We found out who all the characters are playing. We got a bunch of footage. There's a bunch of Easter eggs. So I'll explain where this fits in the Justice League DCEU continuity and how this relates to the first Suicide Squad movie. There were a bunch of other trailers that dropped this weekend. I'm doing videos for everything, so be sure to subscribe to get all those videos. I'm also doing a giveaway for this giant box of DC Fandome merch that they sent me. So all you have to do to enter is just be a subscriber and let me know which new super weird Suicide Squad character is your favorite. The way they explain this movie is that it's sort of a soft reboot of the franchise without completely retconning the events of the first film, but it does take place after the events of the first film. It also takes place after the events of Justice League. Obviously, the Justice League Snyder cut doesn't really change the timeline that much. It still takes place relative to where the other films take place. But it also takes place after the events of the Birds of Prey movie, even though it doesn't necessarily reference a lot of stuff in that movie. Most of what you see from Harley Quinn will just reference her history with the Joker, even though James Gunn did say that Jared Leto's Joker does not appear during this movie. They obviously have to reference each of the characters' backstories in some quick, hilarious way. So when they're referencing Harley Quinn's backstory, they'll just reference the events of the previous film briefly, her history with the Joker, and her history with Ben Affleck's Batman in Gotham. But also, Ben Affleck's Batman does not appear during this movie either, even though he's coming back for the Flash movie. I'll do a separate video for the Flash movie teaser because they just revealed a whole bunch of big stuff about that film. The way they're describing this film, though, is that it's a gritty 1970s war movie, as they say during the trailer. The cool thing about that is that Matt Reeves just said that the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson is based on gritty 1970s cop shows in the movie Chinatown. And Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie is also based on that same gritty 1970s aesthetic. So all these crazy DC movies seem like they're going heavy on the 1970s just in terms of style. So if you really like that aesthetic, a lot of these films are going to feel like that too. But just to be clear, the Batman movie with Matt Reeves is an exception to the continuity. It's not really connected to Justice League or the Suicide Squad movie. That exists in its own separate continuity. I've already done a video about that trailer, so I'll add a link for that at the end of this and in the description because it was badass. But this new version of the Suicide Squad gets caught up in a foreign war. They didn't say where the war is happening, but from all the footage, it just seems like it's somewhere generally in the South American region. Probably going to be some big location from DC Comics history. Some of the bigger surprises, though, are Peter Capaldi playing the Thinker. Obviously, there was a version of that on the Flash TV show, but Peter Capaldi's version is a much more comic book accurate version. Like, you can actually see the nodes sticking out of his skull that they have for his prosthetics. Really happy to see this version of King Shark. I have a really big theory about how they're going to pull that off in Taika Waititi's quote-unquote mystery character. Nobody guessed who Idris Elba was playing, and Michael Rooker too, big surprises. So I'll explain all the characters with some of the bigger Justice League DCEU Easter eggs that connect this to the other movies. But the premise of the movie is simple. There's a foreign war that Amanda Waller is forced to deal with, so she sends in the Suicide Squad to handle it. Now, during the footage, you see them rescuing little girls, but it also seems like they're trying to topple a dictator in a foreign government, which is a very Suicide Squad thing to do. They don't do a lot of large-scale assaults on foreign countries. They're more of a surgical group that Amanda Waller sends in to topple foreign dictators when she wants to get rid of them, when they become an inconvenience to the United States or the organization. For the price of 10 years off their sentence, they complete the mission. As she says, you get 10 years off your sentence, which is also a bit of a teaser for sequels if this movie does well enough, which it seems like it will. It seems like it's going to be the biggest, craziest movie ever. But some of these characters, for instance, have done things that are so terrible that they probably have consecutive life sentences on their terms, so getting 10 years knocked off doesn't really help them that much. So they'd have to go on a ton of different missions in order to meaningfully reduce their sentence. But the funny thing about this, the whole tagline of the movie, "Don't get too attached," quote unquote, is just to let you know that they're definitely going to kill off some of these really ridiculous characters. I'm looking at you, Nathan Fillion and Flula. So if you feel like some of the characters' costumes just make them feel super crazy and silly, it's probably because they're going to kill them off in hilarious ways during the movie. For instance, Nathan Fillion is playing a character called TDK. That is not a character from DC Comics history, but early theory, TDK, the initials, stand for the Detachable Kid, as in a version of Arms Fall Off Boy, which was an early theory people had about his characters, but early predictions, he's going to be one of the earliest characters that they kill off in some hilarious way. I also love that they're doing King Shark so big and crazy. He almost seems like he's going to be a version of King Shark from the Harley Quinn animated series, the more comedic version. Because get this, yes, you do see him running through the trailer, just eating people left and right, anything he can get his fins on. But Steve Agee is the one doing the motion capture for him, running around on set like you see him in that giant harness. But the theory is that Taika Waititi, who's listed prominently in the credits but doesn't appear during the trailer, is just doing voiceover for a character. He's probably going to do the voiceover for King Shark, so King Shark will just run around in the film sounding like a Kiwi while eating people left and right. Think about King Shark just running around sounding like Korg in the movie. They also finally confirmed that Sean Gunn is doing a version of the Weasel character from the comics. This is what he looks like in the movie. Like really horrific, but it's probably going to be kind of hilarious too. It's funny to see him going from playing Rocket, tiny raccoon, motion capture on the set of the Avengers films and Guardians of the Galaxy, to also playing a larger rodent-like character. But I don't know if he's also going to do the voice of the Weasel character too, or if they got somebody else to do that. I love how John Cena is saying that his Peacemaker character is like the douchiest version of Captain America you could possibly imagine, and that's how he played him during the movie. Idris Elba's character actually has a bit of a cool backstory that ties into some of the Justice League and the Superman movies. So he's playing Bloodsport, nobody guessed that. But in the DCEU, he's been imprisoned for shooting Henry Cavill's Superman with a kryptonite bullet. So obviously this takes place after the events of Justice League when Superman has come back to life. But because he's a mercenary, he was hired by Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. So just a little bit of extra Superman story going on in the background. I don't know if that means that Henry Cavill is going to cameo during the film, because there were a lot of rumors about him signing a new contract to show up in a couple different DC movies. There's a way that they could do that Superman scene of him shooting with the kryptonite bullet without actually having to have Henry Cavill on screen. You could just have him off in the distance being shot with a kryptonite bullet. But it would be way cooler just to have him on screen for like 2 seconds while they do that backstory scene. I'm really interested to see how they explain Mon-Gal, because she's the daughter of Mongol in the DCEU, so we know that he exists out there somewhere, even though we haven't seen him on screen. There's a lot of space-based DC movies like the Green Lantern Corps that we just haven't got to yet where we would see those characters. So hopefully at some point they'll get around to making that new Green Lantern Corps movie, or maybe they'll show up during the HBO series and they can do War World during that. Harley Quinn has a couple new badass costumes. She's going to be crazy as always. You've seen so much of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn that I feel like you kind of know what you're going to get going into one of her movies. You all know about Captain Boomerang, Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag, Amanda Waller, all them coming from the events of the first film. David Dastmalchian is playing Polka Dot Man, obviously one of the more ridiculous characters. Cannot wait to see what he's like during the movie. Michael Rooker, looking crazy with that white wig, is the Savant character. I actually thought that Pete Davidson was playing Savant, but he's just another character who's really good with hand-to-hand combat, so just expect Michael Rooker to be super crazy. You all probably know Flula from either his YouTube channel or the other comedic stuff that he's been doing recently in the movies, but his Javelin character is actually from the Booster Gold comics. There was a Booster Gold movie that they were going to try and make at some point that was going to be a comedy. I don't know what happened to that. Maybe we'll see him show up somewhere. But let me know in the comments, which of these new characters are you most excited about? Obviously, that's not all the brand new characters that are going to be in the film. There'll be a bunch of Easter eggs, but the way James Gunn talks about it, it's going to be huge and crazy, and nobody has guessed the plot completely. The movie's coming out in August next year around this time, so we probably won't see the next really big trailer until sometime early next year. But if they drop any more footage or promos or anything like that, of course I'll do a video. There will be more trailers for the Justice League Snyder Cut. I'm still doing a video for the Flash movie teaser, for the Black Adam movie teaser, and I've already done a video about the Batman trailer. So you can click here to watch that a billion more times, and click here for all the other DC Fandome movie trailers. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.